As soon as I walked into the company, everyone around me smiled and called out their congratulations. Congrats, congrats. From now on, we can't call you Secretary Chen, we'll have to call you VP Chen. 10 years of hard work finally paying off. You'll have to look after us from here on out. Shouldn't you treat everyone to dinner tonight to celebrate? We're all going to be working under you now. Looking at their smiling faces, I pressed my lips together and answered with a small smile. Nothing's been decided yet. It's too soon to say anything. It's already a done deal, someone said. All that's left is the formal process. You're just too modest, VP Chen. I waved them off with a smile and headed for the conference room. They weren't just buttering me up. I'd been at New City for 10 years, by Ethan's side ever since he founded the company in his sophomore year of college. My title might have been secretary, but I drafted proposals, negotiated partnerships, researched the company's strategic direction, and even handled his daily needs. You could say that without me, there would be no New City, and Ethan wouldn't be where he is today. This vice president role was the one I deserved. I suppressed the thrill rising in my chest and stepped into the conference room. The executives' seats were already filled, but the mood inside was nothing like the cheer outside. The room was dead silent. When I walked in, the faces of colleagues who had fought alongside me for years showed barely concealed anger and pity. I paused and looked toward Ethan at the head of the table. His fingers were interlaced on the tabletop. Beside him sat a woman with long black hair falling over her shoulders, wearing a pearl-white dress that looked completely out of place in such a serious setting. In that instant, my heart plunged into ice water, yet I still clung to a sliver of hope and asked softly, "Ethan, who is she?" Ethan avoided my eyes and said in a deliberately light tone, "This is our company's new vice president, Joanna. In a bit, take her to HR to get the paperwork done. As for her workstation, put it next to my office." I stood where I was, feeling as if I'd been slapped in public. The room tilted. A department manager next to me couldn't hold back. He slapped the table and stood. "Ethan, what is this supposed to mean? Didn't we agree the VP position was going to Emily?" "That's right." Another manager frowned. "We've all seen how much she has given to the company over the years. You can't just say you're replacing her and be done with it. That's not right." These were colleagues who had battled with me for years, and our relationships had always been good. Ethan's expression sank as his gaze swept the room. After a moment, his voice carried a muted anger. "Tell me, am I the CEO, or are you?" The department manager didn't back down. "You're the CEO, sure, but the company isn't yours alone. You can't just pull someone out of nowhere and make her VP. How are we supposed to accept that?" Ethan let out a cold laugh. "Joanna has a master's degree in finance and economics. Her education is higher than Emily's, and her abilities surpass hers too. I'm doing this for the good of the company. Your heads are all full of personal ties, but a company's development can't be run on sentiment." I looked at Joanna's familiar face and let out a mirthless laugh. "Cut the crap, Ethan. You're saying all this just because she's your first love, aren't you?" I'd known Ethan since high school. Others might not know, but I remembered Joanna very well. She was his first love. Back then, they burned hot and bright. Later, they split after a huge fight. Ethan wanted to stay in the country to start a business, and she wanted to study abroad. Over the years, women had come and gone around Ethan, but none lasted as long as Joanna. Having my words strip away his pretense so bluntly made Ethan's face darken. He leaned back into the oversized leather chair and looked at me with disdain. "Yes, Joanna was my first love. But what did I say that was wrong? She really does have higher credentials than you, and she's better than you. Emily, you need to accept reality." The meeting broke up in discord, ending with me slamming the door on my way out. At my own promotion meeting, he swapped me out at the last minute. I had no idea why Ethan chose to treat me like this. He could have told me in advance, but instead he chose the way that would humiliate me most. The department manager, Ryan, was the one who had headhunted me back then. Ryan and I had worked together for 7 years, and he was the angriest of them all. He refused to do his work, stormed over to my desk, and started complaining bitterly. I heard that Joanna got into some trouble overseas, was fired from her company, and her reputation's ruined. She couldn't find a job, so she had no choice but to come back. Did you see how Ethan looked at her? He's forgotten all about us, the people who've been by his side for years, and only has eyes for his little sweetheart. Disgusting. Ugh. I didn't say anything. My eyes just stared blankly at my desk. It was so old and worn from years of use, the edges covered with scratches. After 9 years in this company, I still didn't have an office of my own. Ethan once told me that space was too tight and that since I was always running to his office anyway, giving me one wouldn't make sense. Better to let others use it. Foolishly, I agreed at the time. But now, the moment Joanna joined, she immediately got her own office, furnished with a luxurious mahogany desk and chair, and equipped with the most expensive, top-spec Mac computer. That's when I realized all of his reasons had just been excuses. In the end, Ethan simply didn't think I was worth it. "Why don't you just quit?" Ryan said after taking a sip of water. "If you stop fighting, we'll all follow you out. This damn company won't last long anyway." I stayed quiet for a moment before asking softly, "Would you really be willing to leave?" His expression stiffened, and he fell silent. We had fought side by side since the company was first founded, and by now, this wasn't just a job for us. New City was like a child I had raised with my own hands. I couldn't bear to abandon it. When it came to Joanna being made VP, my colleagues were even more upset than I was, especially the senior managers. We'd been working together for so long without any conflict of interest, and our bond had grown far beyond ordinary coworker relationships. They couldn't openly oppose Ethan, but in private, they found ways to show their discontent. Joanna's work quickly ran into trouble. Ryan, who was supposed to liaise with her, refused to give her access to the important clients, only passing her trivial or extremely difficult accounts. Other departments treated her the same way. If she went to ask, they gave her scraps. If she didn't, they gave her nothing. When Ethan angrily questioned them, they would shrug and say, "I didn't know what she needed. Didn't I give her everything she asked for?" Frustrated, Ethan turned his attention to me. He called me into his office, his voice gentle. "You've worked hard all these years. Your title is secretary, but you've had to do everything." I looked at him blankly. "Just say what you want to say." Annoyed by my bluntness, he still forced himself to continue. "Now that Joanna's here, you won't have to be so busy. Hand over the clients you've been managing to her. From now on, you can focus solely on being my secretary." He said it so casually, as if it were nothing important. I swayed where I stood, unable to believe what I had just heard. "What did you say?" The clients I managed were ones I had worked with for years. He knew perfectly well what it had cost me to win them over. Back when the company had just started, we had nothing, struggling to survive while trying to steal clients from bigger firms. It was anything but easy. Those clients were notoriously difficult. I still remembered how young we were then, fresh out of college. One of those clients, a bloated man in his 50s, had dragged us to a karaoke bar. Grinning with yellowed teeth, he pointed at a row of liquor bottles on the table. "Ethan, every drink you take, I'll sign a contract worth $1 million. Don't say I never take care of you. That drink is worth it, isn't it?" Proud and hot-tempered, Ethan couldn't stomach that kind of humiliation. He grabbed my arm angrily and tried to storm out. But I knew if we didn't land that deal, the company's finances would collapse. All our hard work would go to waste. Tilting my head up, I gave Ethan a calming smile before pulling him back into his seat. Then I sat down across from the client. "Brother Juan, his drinking tolerance is terrible. Let me drink with you instead." I can still remember the taste of that whiskey, sharp, burning, with a caramel color that carried the fire of a furnace. As it slid down my throat into my stomach, I felt as though my entire body had caught fire. I had never been able to drink, but that night I downed 8 glasses. By the end, I staggered into the restroom, barely able to hold myself up. I vomited until I felt like my insides were being torn out, tears covering my face, but I still clung tightly to that client and forced him to sign the contract on the spot. Shocked by my desperate determination, he gave me a thumbs up. "You're something else, little sister. You've opened my eyes today." Right then and there, he signed a $10 million deal with New City. The moment his pen left the page, I collapsed. I was rushed to the hospital that night and had my stomach pumped. After a night of torment, I barely clung to life. When I finally opened my eyes, the faint light of dawn streamed through the window. Ethan was slumped at my bedside, his eyes bloodshot as he looked at me. I forced a weak smile. "Why are you crying? We saved our child." Back then, he always called New City our child. At first I felt a little embarrassed, but when I was alone, that intimate name secretly made me happy. I loved Ethan, and I knew he knew it. At the time, he was still so young, nowhere near as calm and controlled as he is now. His voice shook as he choked out, "Why did you have to do that? If we lost it, then so be it. Last night you almost." His words trailed off. He lowered his head, his body trembling, his tone thick with tears. "Don't ever scare me like that again." But I thought it was worth it. From that night on, I suffered from severe stomach problems that plague me even now. Similar situations happened several more times after that. Ethan was too young and hot-blooded back then, unable to swallow many insults. Every time I stood in front of him and took the blows for him. I loved him and was willing to do everything I could to protect what he was building. How foolish I was, thinking I could suffer in his place, and believing that was enough. Yet the man who once swore he would never let me down was now pushing me out of the company's inner circle. My chest burned with anger. "Ethan, after everything I've given to this company over the years, how could you do this to me?" He frowned, impatient. "I know you've sacrificed a lot for the company, but hasn't everyone? Do you think you're the only one who's worked hard? Joanna's just joined, and there are so many things she doesn't understand yet. Hand over your clients to her first. You're a secretary, what do you need clients for?" "No." My voice was cold. He clearly hadn't expected me to refuse. Ethan stared at me for a moment, then sneered. "If I were you, I wouldn't make things so ugly for myself." Just then, Joanna pushed the door open and walked in. She moved to Ethan's side, lifted her chin slightly, and looked at me with disdain. "Don't think that just because you've been here longer, you can forget your place. This company belongs to Ethan. Without him, you're nothing." Her eyes narrowed as she added with mockery, "If you're smart, you'll cooperate with me and keep your job. Otherwise, I'll just fire you, and you'll have to pack up and leave." I didn't answer her. I just turned to Ethan and asked quietly, "Is that what you think too?" He looked at me, his expression unmoved. "Joanna is the vice president. She has the authority to decide staffing matters." I nodded slowly, my voice calm. "Understood." Then I tore the badge from my chest and threw it on his desk. "You don't need to fire me. I quit." As soon as I stepped out the door, I saw several people who had been eavesdropping. Ryan was livid. How could he be so shameless? "Screw this, I quit too. I'll leave with you." The others looked heartbroken. "Emily, New City was built by you. If you leave, what will we do? Are we really supposed to follow some woman who just backdoored her way in here?" I forced a smile and patted Ryan on the shoulder. "Forget it, you still have a mortgage to pay. I'll go first. When I make it big, I'll come back for you." The day I left New City, snow fell from the sky. Hugging my things, I turned back one last time. The building stood against the storm, its bright lights glowing through the gloom. I didn't know if it was snowflakes that had fallen into my eyes, but suddenly my vision blurred, my eyes burning with tears. This was the place where I had worked for 9 years. I watched step by step as Ethan moved from our shared dorm room to a tiny rental near campus, then to a 2-story shopfront, and finally, into a high-rise apartment in the city center. I still remember the day we first moved in, when a few of us sat cross-legged on the empty floor, crying and laughing at the same time, boasting about how we were going to make it big. Back then, I had been willing to risk my life to protect him. And yet, in just a few short years, I was waving him goodbye for good. After I left, I heard that Joanna even held a meeting to warn everyone. If they didn't cooperate with her, they'd end up like me, packing up their things and leaving. But Ryan didn't give her any face. He sneered right there in the meeting. "What kind of ending? You mean getting poached by Starlight for a high-paying VP position?" Joanna's face turned green, the meeting fell apart, and she stormed out. She was too foolish. Someone like me, a versatile all-rounder, had always been a coveted prize in the industry. Even in the early years, before New City had grown, plenty of big companies tried to poach me, offering starting salaries in the millions. Back then, I rejected every offer. I devoted myself entirely to Ethan and New City, living on just a few thousand a month, and I thought it was sweet. But now I didn't have to hold back anymore. The day after I resigned, I called Starlight's CEO. "I heard you're looking for someone. Do you think I might fit the bill?" CEO Henry from Starlight didn't hesitate. "What I'm short of is a vice president. If you come, you can start tomorrow." He wasn't feeding me empty promises either. The very next day, he personally walked me through the paperwork and introduced me to every department. "Everyone, this is Miss Emily. From now on, she's Starlight's vice president. Her word is my word. Over the next few days, make sure you report your work to her and fully support her." That evening, Henry hosted a welcome banquet for me. I raised my glass and smiled. "Mr. Henry, it's my honor to work with all of you at Starlight. Here's to a smooth collaboration." Henry's eyes glimmered with charm as he replied, "No, the honor is all ours, Miss Emily. Having you here is Starlight's fortune." The new work environment was far better than I had imagined. I finally had a spacious office of my own. No one at Starlight tried to give me trouble just because I came from New City. In fact, within the industry I already had a reputation. They knew about my ability long before, so everything went surprisingly smoothly. That is, until I received my first major project. The moment I opened the file, I froze. It was the same marketing partnership with the publicly listed company Morningstar that I had previously handled at New City. The deal was huge, one of the most important projects for companies in the city. Back then, Ethan hadn't trusted anyone else and insisted I personally oversee it. I'd burned 2 straight weeks to draft a proposal he finally approved. Given how much he valued Joanna now, I was certain this project had landed in her lap. A fire blazed inside me. This was my first project since leaving New City, my first chance to turn the tables. This time, I would show them what New City was without me. On the day of negotiations, Henry took me along. Before we even stepped inside, we ran into Ethan arriving with Joanna trailing behind him. When she spotted me, her face stiffened. Ethan's expression was complicated, his lips parting as if he wanted to say something, but I brushed past him without even a glance. When the meeting began, we sat across from each other. My emotions were a tangled mess. For years, I had always been seated at his side, and now fate had me face to face with him as an opponent. The person in charge at Morningstar adjusted his glasses. "This project is very important to us. Thank you all for coming. Why don't each of you present your proposals, and afterward we'll make a decision." Joanna leapt to her feet, proposal in hand, and strode to the front. New City has a strong advantage in precision marketing. Everyone, please take a look at our past successes, including the campaign we designed for Prime Dining. For half a year, their market presence, share, and sales volume had all risen significantly. Those were my achievements. I sat there expressionless, watching Joanna flaunt them as if they were her own. The more I listened, the more wrong it felt. New City's proposal sounded eerily familiar. Then it hit me. It was the exact proposal I had written before I left. Fury exploded inside me as I turned to glare at Ethan. I never imagined he could be so shameless, handing over the proposal I had spent weeks perfecting to Joanna. I had clearly left that proposal with Ryan before I quit. Ethan must have stolen it and given it to her. At that moment, I didn't know whether I felt more anger or heartbreak. I had served as Ethan's secretary for 9 years, working tirelessly and faithfully. Even if he didn't care for me personally, at the very least, we had been partners in building the company. How could he sink this low? Perhaps feeling a flicker of guilt, Ethan didn't dare meet my eyes, and right then, I finally felt utterly disappointed in him. Joanna wrapped up her presentation with flourish, and I saw a hint of approval in Morningstar's representative's eyes. He praised her warmly. As expected from New City, still the same high standards. "Miss Joanna, your proposal is excellent." Joanna accepted the compliment without a trace of shame. "Thank you. Now let's hear Starlight's plan." Henry gave me a nod, so I took my proposal and stepped forward. I had prepared mine in a rush, and I couldn't claim it was better than the one Joanna had presented. After hearing me out, the Morningstar representative only nodded politely. Just as the room began to settle, I interjected. "Excuse me, Miss Joanna, but I have a question." In your proposal, you mentioned that New City has 18 marketing offices in S City. Yet as far as I know, New City only has 8. Where did the other 10 come from? This was a mistake I had made myself while drafting the original proposal. I had typed the number wrong but hadn't gotten the chance to fix it before leaving. Now Joanna had taken that flawed draft and presented it as her own. Joanna froze. Under the Morningstar representative's sharp gaze, she frantically flipped through the proposal in her hands, but the more she panicked, the less she could find. After all, it wasn't her work. She was only parroting it. I gave a cold laugh. Don't tell me you can't even remember the data from your own proposal. Or were you deliberately exaggerating, lying just to secure this deal? I pressed harder. Is this how New City treats its partnerships? With such irresponsibility? How can anyone trust you like this? Joanna's face turned pale, and she snapped at me through gritted teeth. It was you. You did this on purpose. I spread my hands, feigning innocence. This is your proposal, not mine. What does it have to do with me? The Morningstar representative's brows furrowed. Data falsification is one of the gravest taboos in business. Miss Joanna, what exactly is the meaning of this? Joanna stammered, unable to get a word out. Ethan rushed to smooth things over. I'm sorry. One of our interns must have typed it wrong. The correct number is 8. New City's reputation has always been solid. Please look at our previous cases. I cut him off coldly. Those cases were all my work. What do they have to do with you? Prime Dining, Aurora Fashion, which of those marketing campaigns weren't designed by me, Emily Chen? And yet you dare to claim them as yours. Henry smiled faintly. Mr. Zhang, let me add something. Our vice president, Miss Emily Chen, previously worked at New City. All of those successful cases you've seen were handled by her personally. If you choose to work with Starlight, she will also be in charge of this campaign. When we left the building, Ethan's face was darker than the night. Morningstar had rejected New City's proposal outright and signed with us instead. Their words had been cutting. New City has greatly disappointed us. You don't even know how many offices you actually operate, and you expect us to trust you? This level of irresponsibility is unacceptable. We won't consider cooperating with New City again. This project was directly tied to which company would dominate the S City market. The impact was critical for both sides. Ethan had poured so much preparation into it, and this failure would strike him like a crushing blow. When I'd been with Ethan before, he had rarely tasted failure, which made this one all the harder for him to accept. As we walked out, he looked at me, his tone laced with reproach. Emily, you really didn't show me a shred of mercy. I raised my brows. Business is war, Ethan. Don't tell me you still care about saving face in a battlefield. His fists clenched, his brows knit tight. So just a vice president title is enough for you to betray everything we had? You really are that pragmatic. I met his eyes and was struck by how serious he looked. He truly believed I was in the wrong. For a moment, I found it absurd. So absurd that my anger tipped into bitter laughter. My lips curved as I said each word slowly and clearly. Ethan, it's one thing to be useless, but being useless and shameless at the same time is something else. All those years you relied on me, and while you leaned on me, you still tried to push me down. Then you parachuted in. I glanced at Joanna with contempt, a worthless person to snatch my VP position. And now you have the nerve to accuse me of being pragmatic? You make me sick. My smile widened as his face drained of color. He opened his mouth but couldn't get a word out. He stared at me in disbelief, as though he couldn't comprehend how the woman who had always stood by his side could suddenly turn her blade against him. I didn't look at him again. I turned and walked away. From the day he let Joanna drive me out of New City, whatever feelings I had left for him were ground to dust. 10 years, just a long, foolish dream. Now that I'd woken up, it was time to move on. A while later, Ryan called me, grumbling. I really can't stand Joanna anymore. Wasn't she supposed to be some top graduate from a prestigious school? She acts like an idiot. Every proposal she writes is full of loopholes. She can't even get the numbers right, and she won't let us review them, like she's scared we'll steal them. The clients look at her proposals and explode in anger. They flat out refuse to sign. Damn it, I spent half a year negotiating that contract, and she ruined it. She's a walking disaster. He took a gulp of water and went on. You don't know, in just a few months she's managed to offend nearly all the clients. Performance has dropped by over 40%. After I hung up, I sat in silence. Honestly, I had already foreseen this outcome the day I left. For years, I had done everything I could for Ethan. That was who I was. When I loved someone, I wanted them to thrive. I gave everything, even my heart. But now I understood, what comes too easily is rarely cherished. Ethan had been too well shielded by me. Every case he handled was one I had carefully prepared, filtered, and refined. His so-called success had always been built on my support. Without me, he was nothing. I wanted nothing more than to cut ties and go my own way. But in S-City, there were only so many big companies, and we inevitably crossed paths. In late October, Henry brought back a new project. This company came through Ethan, he said. Not small in scale, they want to do a marketing campaign. Take a look and study it. I reviewed the materials for a long time before I finally said, we can't take this project. Look at them, clearly not a small firm, and the budget is high. If their products are sound, why wouldn't they go through Ethan's firm directly? Why come to us instead? Honestly, can our market presence compare with theirs? You should dig into their products. I'm worried something's off. A few days later, Henry returned, his face grim. You were right. I sent someone to investigate. Turns out their products had quality issues before. This company is nothing but a shell, repackaged to dump defective inventory. If not for your caution, we would have walked right into their trap. I thought that was the end of it. But when I ran into Ethan again at the industry association, I learned with a jolt that New City had taken that project after all. Joanna clung to Ethan's arm and sneered at me. Emily, do you really think New City can't survive without you? We just landed a huge project, much bigger than anything you've ever done. You were only lucky before, catching New City's momentum. Don't tell me you actually believe the world stopped spinning without you. I glanced at Ethan, words on the tip of my tongue. Out of spite, I didn't want to warn him about the truth behind that project. But New City was a company I had built with my own hands, and I couldn't bear to see it crash like this. Ethan, however, misunderstood my hesitation. He met my gaze and said coldly, Emily, I can live just fine without you. I don't need you. I swallowed the warning I had been about to give and forced a faint smile. Well then, that's great to hear. Over the next few days, Ethan and Joanna strutted around, glowing with pride. This was the first deal they had landed since I left, and they wanted the whole world to know. New City's entire marketing division was working overtime, throwing everything they had into promoting the product. The higher they climbed, the harder they would fall. And fall they did. One evening in late autumn, the first expose appeared online. Their new promotion included infant formula, but soon many babies who drank it were hospitalized with severe vomiting and diarrhea. At first, Ethan and Joanna managed to pay to have posts suppressed. But as more and more parents came forward, the situation spiraled out of control. By November, it exploded completely. 2 toddlers, just over a year old, suffered respiratory failure after drinking the formula. They were rushed to the hospital but couldn't be saved. The news hit like a bomb. Public outrage boiled over. Media outlets everywhere reported the tragedy. The company's shady practices were exposed, and New City, as their marketing partner, was dragged down with them. Online, people cursed them viciously. How could you promote something this heartless? Aren't you afraid of making money you won't live to spend? How can such a product even be marketed? There must be dirty deals behind this. Investigate it. Companies this black-hearted should be shut down. Overnight, New City became the target of universal condemnation. Many clients Joanna had offended had already left. Others had followed me to Starlight. The few that remained now fled in panic, tearing up contracts one after another. Ethan was desperate, begging for help everywhere, but no one would answer him. Just when I thought New City would finally face the punishment it deserved, Ryan came to see me. I hadn't seen him in days, and he looked terrible, his face gaunt, dark circles so deep I was afraid he'd collapse on the spot. Is it really that bad? I asked, startled. He dragged a hand over his face, silent for a long time. Finally, he buried his head in his hands, his voice rough with despair. Emily, New City is finished. I frowned. Once the storm passes, won't it blow over? The main responsibility is with the manufacturer, not you. Ryan let out a bitter laugh. It's not just that, you don't know. New City has been in chaos these last few days. After the scandal broke, Joanna panicked. She went running to some old acquaintance for advice. That person told her to hand over the company's files so they could analyze the problem. I froze. That's leaking trade secrets. Ryan pressed his fingers against his temples, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Exactly. But she was stupid enough to actually hand them over. The guy never meant to help, he just wanted to strike while New City was down. Now every one of our proposals has been exposed, even the ones still in development. Clients are suing us left and right. The money in our accounts isn't nearly enough to cover the damages. This time, New City might really collapse. After all these years of building it up, how can it fall apart so quickly? I stayed silent. The truth was, I didn't know what to say. I had poured nearly 10 years of my life into New City. Watching it crumble still tore at me. Ryan looked at me, bewildered. Why, Emily? Why did Ethan insist on bringing back someone so useless, someone who couldn't do a single thing right, and make her VP? I once thought Ethan really loved Joanna, but now it didn't even look like they were together. The last time she invited him out to dinner, he didn't even go. I shook my head. I would never understand what Ethan was really thinking, and by now, it no longer mattered. While Ryan and I were eating, his phone suddenly buzzed with a video call. He answered, and chaos burst from the other end. People were shouting over one another, their voices a tangled mess. "What's going on?" Ryan frowned. "Manager Ryan," someone cried. "The new intern is about to break down in tears. The police want to take him away. The vice president keeps saying it was him who leaked the trade secrets, that he's the one being sued. The whole company's in turmoil. Please, hurry back." I looked at the screen. New City's office building was jammed with angry clients, some of whom I still recognized. They were shouting at Joanna, spitting with rage. "We only gave you our product information because you were supposed to market it for us," one yelled. "We signed confidentiality agreements with you. What the hell is going on now? Our latest product data is all over the place. Who's going to cover these losses?" "Yeah," another snapped. "Didn't we make it clear there'd be no leaks? Where's Secretary Chen? When she was here, nothing like this ever happened. And the moment you show up, suddenly our product info is everywhere. Has New City lost its mind?" Joanna's makeup was smeared with tears as she fumbled with a cigarette, panicked and trembling. "I didn't know. I had no idea he was a fraud. How can you blame me? You should go after him, not me." Over and over, she repeated those same lines like a broken record. The clients quickly lost patience. "Bullshit. We gave our information to you, not to him. We're here for answers from you. You can save your excuses for the police." With that, they grabbed her and tried to drag her out. Terrified, Joanna reached for Ethan, crying out, "Ethan, save me. I did all of this for you, for the company." Ryan sneered. "Shameless, you almost bankrupted the whole company, and you still dare say it was for the company? We can't afford a Buddha like you in our small temple. Get out." Joanna looked around desperately, but all she saw were cold, unforgiving eyes. The company, once thriving, was now crumbling, and everyone faced unemployment. Who could possibly look kindly on the one who brought it down? She sobbed and begged, but Ethan only cast her a single glance, his expression filled with disgust. She froze, then was dragged away. What happened afterward didn't need much investigation. The scandal spread like wildfire across the entire business community in the city. Every company took New City's downfall as a warning, launching internal audits and confidentiality training to avoid repeating the same mistake. New City couldn't be saved. The damages were enormous, and the finances couldn't sustain it. Even when Ethan poured in his own money, it wasn't enough to stop the collapse. In the end, New City was sold off at a rock-bottom price. The company was finished, and Ethan was finished too. As for Joanna, she was sentenced to 3 years in prison for leaking trade secrets. I heard that before going in, she was still shouting that it wasn't her fault. But no one cared anymore. Not even Ethan went to see her again. One day I took a leave from Starlight without really knowing what I wanted. I just walked aimlessly down the streets. At some point I lifted my head, and there it was, New City's building, its windows still glowing with light. But the logo had already been stripped away, leaving the facade bare and empty. Without realizing it, I had walked back here. It was a bleak winter evening, the wind cutting sharp and cold. The sky hung low and gray, pressing down like a weight. It was exactly the same kind of weather as the day I left New City. Only this time, the lights inside no longer burned with the same warmth. I stood at the edge of the street with my hands stuffed into my pockets, staring in silence until my eyes stung. From 20 to 29, I had given all of my youth here. I had watched it grow step by step, from a few college students joking about ideas to a corporation making hundreds of millions. It had once been my dream, the faith I had been willing to devote my entire life to. I never thought I would witness his downfall so quickly. I breathed warm air into my frozen, aching hands and slipped into a small wonton shop by the street. The place was tiny, tucked away so well that only a few regulars knew about it. When the owner saw me, he wiped down a table with a rag and greeted me warmly. "Hey, long time no see? Been busy with work lately?" I opened my mouth, hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, it's been too busy. The usual, mildly spicy." He grinned, and I found a seat at one of the greasy little tables that never seemed quite clean, though the food was always good. Back in the early days, when Ethan and I had just started the company and had no money, we'd come here whenever we craved something. We'd order a few skewers, drink 2 bottles of beer. His tolerance was terrible. After 1 bottle, he'd already be tipsy, his face flushed red, talking nonsense. "One day we'll ring the bell at one of the big 4 exchanges," he'd say. I'd laugh at him. "Ring the bell? You can't even get us a client right now." He'd just chuckle, eyes shining under the cheap fluorescent lights, shimmering with dreams. "When we ring the bell, we'll..." His voice would get drowned out by the noise of the shop. I never caught the rest. He never repeated it, only smiled. And now, just a few years later, here I was alone, drinking beer in the same spot, with a bitterness I couldn't put into words. Sour, sharp, unbearable. How had things come to this? The door curtain lifted, letting in a gust of icy wind. Someone sat down in the empty seat across from me. The owner chuckled. "You two used to always come here together. Then you started showing up alone. I thought you'd broken up. Turns out you're still together, huh? That's good." Ethan didn't correct him. "Boss, bring a case of Tsingtao." "Right away," the owner replied cheerfully. Ethan sat as if no one else was there, picking up my bottle and drinking straight from it. The fizz of the beer made him frown. I couldn't hold back a sneer. "What's wrong, Ethan? Had too much imported liquor? Can't handle beer anymore?" He stayed silent for a long while. Then, with his head lowered, he muttered, "Emily, do you think I'm useless? A failure?" I gave a cold laugh. "Do I even need to answer that?" He forced out a bitter smile. "New City's gone. Couldn't hold on. I sold it." His voice was low, almost lost in the noise of the shop. "I always thought, without you, I could still make it. I thought I didn't need your protection anymore." I took a sip of beer, pressing the bitterness back down into my chest. The skewers I ordered sat untouched between us. Ethan didn't eat a thing, only kept drinking. His tolerance had always been poor, and he was drinking fast, almost desperately. Before long, his eyes were clouded, unfocused. And in that haze, for just a moment, I thought I could see the shadow of that young man in a white t-shirt, the one who used to swear he'd take me to ring the bell at the stock exchange. That Ethan had vanished long ago. The man before me, this Ethan, looked less like someone who'd take me to ring a bell, and more like someone ready to toll one for me. What remained was nothing but a faint afterimage, blurred and fleeting. "Emily," he asked suddenly, "do you know why I brought Joanna back as vice president?" I thought for a moment. "Because you felt threatened by me, didn't you?" It was only later that I truly understood. We were all adults who still believed in fairy tales about first loves and perfect white moons. Even if he still had feelings for Joanna, he wouldn't risk something as important as the company for it. The truth was far simpler. He thought I had grown too influential inside New City. By the time I had grown strong enough to threaten his position as CEO, Ethan felt he had no choice but to find a way to push me out. He laughed then, but it was the kind of laugh uglier than crying. "No, Emily, it wasn't like that. I just wanted to prove to you that without your protection, I could still stand. I could still be Ethan." "Do you remember the time they forced you to drink?" he asked suddenly. How could I not remember? Even now, late at night, my stomach still ached faintly from it. You couldn't drink back then either. His eyes grew distant, as if he were looking straight through me, back to a night long ago. When they wheeled you into the ER, the doctor handed me a critical notice. You don't know how terrified I was. I even thought, I don't want the company anymore. I don't want to start a business anymore. I just want you to live. I couldn't tell if it was the bitterness of his words or the bitterness of the beer, but my eyes stung, and for a fleeting moment I thought I might cry. Ethan drained the can in his hand, his eyes reddening, and crushed it flat with shaking force. That was when I realized how useless I was. Useless enough that you had to defend me like that. I whispered. I did it because I wanted to. Back then I liked you. I just wanted you to be okay. I couldn't stand watching you suffer. And do you think I could stand watching you suffer instead? His voice cracked suddenly. All these years, I never responded to you, not because I didn't like you. It was because... He lowered his head, his voice rough with pain. I didn't feel worthy. What kind of man, always protected by a woman, has the right to say he loves her? I kept holding my breath, telling myself that one day I'd be strong enough to take the burden from you, to protect you instead. His words broke into a sob. I just didn't want you standing in front of me anymore. There he was, a man nearly 30 years old, breaking down in tears at a roadside food stall. I took a long drink of beer, the icy liquid sliding down into my stomach and rising back as a spreading warmth. After a moment, I said quietly, "Don't dress it up so nicely. Maybe part of you thought that way, but wasn't it mostly your pride? You couldn't stand being weaker than me, always in my shadow. That's why you forced me out. If it hadn't been Joanna, it would have been someone else. Some other excuse. One way or another, you wouldn't have let me stay at New City." Ethan fell silent. I finished my last bottle, stood and called to the owner. "Check, please." The owner smiled kindly. "All right." I grabbed my coat, lifted the curtain, and stepped into the night. Snow had started falling without my noticing, thick, heavy flakes swirling in the wind, glowing faintly golden in the light from the street lamps. Behind me, Ethan's voice trembled. "Emily, if I told you I know I was wrong, would you come back?" I didn't answer. I let the curtain fall behind me and walked into the storm. By late January, just as I was preparing to resign from Starlight, Ryan called. His voice was weary, tinged with something I couldn't place. "Emily, Ethan was in a car accident." My hand tightened around the cup I was holding. "Is it serious?" There was a long silence before Ryan finally spoke, his voice low. "He's lost a leg. They had to amputate. His arm was shattered, though the doctors managed to reattach it. They said he'll never be able to do more than light work again. He won't even be able to lift anything heavy." Bookmark, my mind went blank. How? How could this happen? He went out drinking. Then he drove on the highway and crashed, drunk driving, Ryan said quietly. New City's gone, but he's probably the one who's suffering most. If you have the time, maybe go see him. After he hung up, I sat frozen at my desk all afternoon, unable to do a single thing. Every time I closed my eyes, Ethan's face filled my mind. His face had been covered in blood. For someone as proud as Ethan, to spend the rest of his life disabled, how could he ever accept that? And yet, after hesitating for a long time, I decided not to go see him. Ethan and I had competed and compared ourselves for so many years. In his condition now, he surely wouldn't want me to witness his humiliation. Our relationship had run its course. From youthful encounters to bitter resentment, it had reached its end. Too many things were tangled up in it, too much weight for something already fragile. Without even needing to close my eyes, I knew it was broken beyond repair. I looked out the window at the snowy sunset. It had always been a mistake, and it was enough to end it here. When I handed in my resignation, Henry tried his best to keep me. "Are you unhappy with the company's benefits? If there's anything unsatisfactory, tell me and I'll fix it." I smiled and shook my head. "The company has treated me very well, and you, Mr. Henry, have been more than fair. I'm just tired. I want to rest for a while." He sighed regretfully. "Then after you've rested, you must come back. Starlight's doors will always be open to you." In the days that followed, I traveled everywhere: Chengdu, Hangzhou, Inner Mongolia, Tibet. Abroad, I went to the Maldives, Egypt, toured Europe, then on to Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. The best years of my youth had been poured into work, and only after everything had happened did I suddenly realize I had never truly enjoyed life. So I indulged. I walked barefoot along glowing foreign beaches, galloped across boundless grasslands, and lost myself beneath Iceland's starry skies and shimmering auroras. Life wasn't only about work. Now, at last, I understood there was another kind of happiness. In August, at the height of summer, Ryan sent me a message on WeChat. "Isn't it about time? You're practically a travel blogger now, always posting pictures and making us jealous. Don't you think it's time to come back and get to work?" I laughed when I read it. "You've already been laid off, and you still think about working? Want to meet up?" Ryan chuckled in reply. "Why not? I'm proud of it. So, when are you coming back? All of us are waiting to start over with you." I looked down at the suitcase in my hand and smiled faintly. "Get ready. I've already landed. This time, I'll definitely take you guys to ring the bell at NASDAQ." Far away, the horizon was painted with the blazing light of sunrise. My story had only just begun.